Good morning and welcome. This is a big day. We're here to celebrate Springfield. We're here to celebrate specifically Crestwood. 75 years ago, the land was sold on which we could build this community that we've all come to know so well and to love so well. It's still a very vibrant community, a very friendly community. We come together and we're glad we're here. We've raised our families here and they come back. So, as a matter of fact, we have one lady here who is on Backlake Road, Nellie Cisneros. Nellie, raise your hand and wave to everybody there. She's been in that home for 35 years, and she's right on Backlake Road. She's in the sample home there. So, first, I want to thank the two officers that we have here today from Franconia Police Station. It would be Officer Cindy Oswega and Officer Malik. So, thank you to Captain Kraus for arranging that. And I want to thank Rodney Lusk's office. Supervisor Lusk's office has been very instrumental in helping us put this together, and especially Heriberto Velasquez, who is making up for my minimal knowledge of sound systems. So thank you. Thank you. Jason Planakis and Eric Jones. Eric is here. Jason is off at a wrestling tournament. He teaches over at Lewis High School. They keep this grounds, especially Jason comes and just keeps it spectacularly well trimmed and manicured. We look very classy thanks to him. Eric comes and spreads the fertilizer, makes sure it stays green. So thank you for that. Thank you for all the people who contributed to the restoration of this sign behind me. This was in sad shape, and we felt like it needed a facelift. And wow, within 24 hours we had raised enough to have it repainted and fixed up, and it was beyond our expectations. We had people from out of state who had been raised here, who had just lived here a little while, or just enjoyed the community for other reasons, and they just came together, and we got enough money to paint the sign, and we'll go ahead and we'll also be doing some landscaping. So come spring, you should see a new face. This will be the same, but we'll landscape around it. So I don't see any original owners here, but we do have quite a few. Unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, they're up there in years and couldn't come today. They're in their 80s, even 90s. And you think if they bought in the 50s, they've been here quite a while. So at this point, I want to introduce to you our supervisor, our lead district supervisor, Rodney Lusk. He's going to be reading a letter from our chairman of the Board of Supervisors of Fairfax County, Jeff McKay. Okay, thank you, Rodney.
Thank you, everyone. Jeff McKay unfortunately could not be here today. His wife unfortunately lost her grandfather, and they are at a funeral. So he apologizes, and I expressed that I would relay that message, and I will read his letter here for you today. Dear Springfield Civic Association and residents, on behalf of the Fairfax County Board of Supervisors, I'd like to congratulate the West Crestwood community on its 75th birthday celebration. As the heart of Springfield, your community attracts young families, boasts great diversity, and long-standing civic participation. I started my career in public service 26 years ago in the lead district supervisor's office. Since then, it has been and continues to be a pleasure to work so closely with such a warm and connected community. Today, as your first Fairfax County Chairman, when I look back on what we have achieved together, I feel great pride. We've just started. However, I look forward to continuing our work to make Central Springfield, Lee District, and Fairfax County an even better place to live, work, play, and raise our families. Crestwood is an anchor community in our great county. In recognition of Crestwood's anniversary and the role your strong community plays in making Fairfax County one of the best places in the county, I am joining District Supervisor Rodney Lusk this week to sponsor a countywide proclamation celebrating 75 years and all of your community has achieved and contributed. We anticipate celebrating that proclamation this week on Tuesday, December 7th, 2021. Best wishes and congratulations again. Sincerely, Jeffrey C. McKay, Chairman, Fairfax County Board of Supervisors. So with that, I'll add just a couple of additional comments. I personally appreciate working very closely with the SCA, and I'll be very clear in saying over the course of the last 2 years, we've had a very close working relationship. I actually meet on a quarterly basis with the directors of your association and talking about issues of concern to your community. And I want to be very clear and specific in the point that I'm going to make now. And I am very invested in doing everything I can to improve the overall quality of life here. And I acknowledge that there are some issues here in Central Springfield that we need to work on. I was a planning commissioner in the role here 10 years ago before I became a member of this board. And I served in the planning commission at the time when we talked about developing the KSI project, which is this huge mixed-use development that would have gone here in Central Springfield. Unfortunately, the markets changed dramatically after that time, as we all remember, and that project went away. And I'm going to be clear in saying we've got to figure out what is the future of Springfield. And I've asked the board, and I've gotten concurrence on this. We're going to do a market study to really look at how can we better plan, how can we better look at the future of this area. And I'll be frank in saying I am worried about what's going to happen with the office market over time, because it's just not very clear right now what it means for those office developments that are outside of transit station areas. Second, the hotel market. Also very concerned about that. What's the timing for its rebound? But I just want to be clear in saying I understand the issues that are kind of here in the community, and we're going to be very focused on working with the SCA and making sure we get the improvements that we need. So with that, I'll say congratulations again on behalf of the chairman as well on 75 great years, and we're going to look to make it even better for the next 75. Thank you very much.
Thank you to Rodney. As he's mentioned, he's been very, very generous and gracious in meeting with our Civic Association board quarterly. And he does listen and he is responsive. So thank you, Rodney. Okay, next is somebody you all recognize, Vivian Watts, Delegate Vivian Watts, who represents Virginia's 39th House District in Richmond. She's been representing us for years. She could tell you anything you want to know, and maybe some things you don't want to know about transportation and how you get or don't manage to get things done in Richmond. It's a real challenge sometimes, isn't it? But Vivian's been around. You'll see her on voting days. She's just everywhere and very much cares about our community. So, Delegate Watts.
Thank you, Gail. That was so very generous. And at this time of year, though, I've got to first start by acknowledging I don't know who's part of Gail's efforts to provide the Christmas cookies every year, but that's not just because they are delicious and I look forward to them, but they always come with a note that always seems so sincerely worded of appreciation, of thank you for doing what you do. So this is my thank you back to you. That one of the reasons why you see me so much is what's Crestwood's really all about, is that and you will hear that in the remarks that follow from your resident historian, that it was designed to be an integrated community. It was designed to have both the public infrastructure support, yes, transportation, and this solution is not a bad solution of the way traffic flows through this area, but that integration of all of the utilities and especially the schools. I do remember being at the celebration for Crestwood Elementary. I believe it was the 50th, and a particularly delightful woman who had been an aide there at the school for all of those 50 years and knew every child every year by name and made that child feel welcome. And that's really at the heart of what Crestwood, both by design and concept that Carr had seen of what this suburban development needs to be, to have roots while you have also the sprawl of those roots. But those roots are what Supervisor Lusk is referring to when he says, I look forward to meeting with you. He can't be responsive without your involvement. Thank God that the door is open, and that's what you ask of us, that that door is open. But what I have so enjoyed about Crestwood, Lynbrook area is that you have that core of involvement that has just been built into the community. It's precious. Don't let it go. The 26 years represented in Chairman McKay's remarks, as he knows this area well from having served always in the Lee District office, is challenged. It's challenged both by what we've seen in the last 2 years as far as what COVID has meant to how much we can really feel connected in the community and how many people are in stress because of those broken connections, and how we will rebuild and make sure that our children feel as much a part of the community as this community was designed to be, that embracive, but also the diversity that this community has come to represent over the last decades. And that kind of embraciveness is what we really celebrate, in my experience, in Carr's original design, and what you, the residents of this community, carry forward in making this the kind of strong, vibrant community that it is. It's as strong as these houses were built strong, so is the community. So it is, again, my pleasure to be here, my pleasure to commemorate that spirit that is such a deep part of Crestwood. Congratulations.
Thank you, Vivian, and thanks for all you do again. Next, we have Lynn Garvey Hodge, who's Vice Chairman of the Fairfax County History Commission, who's going to read the remarks that our local official, Robin Carter, historian Robin Carter, put together. Robin couldn't join us today, but she is a wealth of information down to the last detail. So if ever you want to know who did what, including the good, the bad, and the ugly, we'll give you her contact information. She's got the skinny. All right, Lynn, please.
Good morning. Look at you all. Oh my gosh, this is Fairfax County neighborhood, alive and well. Give yourselves a round of applause. It's Saturday morning and you're here. All right. Our other friend that couldn't be with us today, as you well know, is Robin Carter. So let's give her a round of applause also. Yay, Robin! All right. And finally, as you know, I'm going to read Robin's remarks, and I will give you a heads up. If you know Robin, she is, as was already said, fairly detailed. So you're going to get in her remarks a lovely history of this area of Springfield, of Crestwood, and some of the background information. But before we do that, I want to suggest that we simply sing Happy Birthday to Crestwood. Are we ready for this? All right. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Crestwood. I don't sing. Happy birthday to you. All right, round of applause for you all and for Crestwood. And here are Robin's words, and it is an honor to be here today. I've been a commissioner for 21 years and seen a lot of change in Fairfax County, and it's folks like you that keep it in place. Robin's words. Good morning, residents of Springfield and distinguished guests. As a passionate historian for Springfield, this event holds great importance to me personally And I truly regret I am not able to attend in person, but please know I'm here in spirit with great love for this community I have long considered my heart's hometown. As you stand here before the beautifully restored Crestwood Springfield sign, you stand before a symbol that is so much more than brick, iron, and paint. You stand before something more than what can be considered a gateway to the overall Springfield community. The restoration and preservation of this sign represents what I hope will be the beginning of a new mindset about Springfield as a proud and historic part of the development of Fairfax County. With a combination of pride, recognition, and respect for her history, her present and future prosperity will be all the more fruitful going forward. Many cities and towns across America have utilized their local history, preserved in original or restored homes and commercial structures of all eras to give an anchoring presence for new business and growth, so the two do not have to be mutually exclusive. Such marriages of old and new help give balance between the boldness of the future with the warmth of a vital and interesting past. The sign can serve as a landmark for such a blending in the Springfield community. In its mid-century simplicity, it welcomes residents and visitors alike, and has for nearly 70 years. It was 75 years ago, on December 30th, 1946, that the Washington area developer Mr. Edward Carr began buying and amassing the first 2,300 acres of land with the intention of turning the rural property into a much-needed suburban satellite city. This was during a great housing shortage across our nation, and it was causing hardship for millions of American families. That shortage was most acutely felt in the D.C. area, with expanding government opportunities for employment following World War II and the beginnings of the famous baby boom. A generation which brought thousands of families to look for places to reside within commuting distance of D.C. Unlike other communities that grew in a more unplanned, random fashion, Mr. Carr had a vision to pre-plan as much of this new community as possible, and thus he deserves credit for having created something in our area that was later fine-tuned and expanded by others in places such as Reston. Although it has outgrown a good bit of his pre-planning efforts, his work was extremely helpful in the early days of building the Springfield you know today. At the time of this purchase, there was little in the way of public utilities, with no water system, sewage, natural gas lines, or any of the conveniences we take for granted today. It took Mr. Carr 5 years to get the infrastructure in place to start building his dream community. At that time, the only thing that could be seen as a benefit to the area were its vast, undeveloped land, wherein such a pre-planned community could be built from scratch, as well as its location along the newly opened Henry G. Shirley Memorial Highway, now known as I-395. 2021 is not just the 75th year of Mr. Carr's purchase. It was 70 years ago, on April 9th, 1951, that Mr. Carr sold 593 acres of his earlier purchase to the Crestwood Construction Corporation. Who built the first of the houses from which all of Springfield grew, and the ones this sign has represented for all these many years? Crestwood's Springfield. Many have long believed that the Springvale subdivision was the first, but that isn't quite true. In the real sense of a beginning here, due to the fact that Springvale at that time was far from being a fully equipped subdivision. It was rather a group of buildable lots on which buyers had to build their own homes without much in the way of utilities to support them. Crestwood Springfield homes came fully built with the utilities already in place, and they were indeed a foundational part of Mr. Carr's planned community. The first 13 model homes for what is known by the shorter nickname Crestwood were built in the winter of 1951 and 1952. With the exception of one, most of those first model homes still exist. In this block that surrounds Backlick, Essex, Amherst, and the original garden apartments along the short block of Cumberland Avenue. At that time, the Washington Post reported that the newly started Springfield had an average of 1,000 visitors a week. Many of these visitors came to tour these sample homes, and at its height, an average of 1 home per day was sold to those early suburban pioneers. Springfield was such a huge and popular new community that even local retailers got in on the act, and what would be an early version of cross-marketing, with both builders, homes, and the store's products showing up in each other's print ads and articles. The news of this suburban phenomenon even caught the attention of 2 nationally published magazines that sent staff to photograph the development and write feature stories during the summer of 1952. Extremely well built, modest in size and price, the Crestwood homes sold quickly, and soon other builders, including some of Carr's own building firms, began creating Beverly Forest, Yates Village, Monticello Forest, and Lynbrook subdivisions, all in rapid succession. By the spring of 1955, Bernard Steinberg, president, and E. Carl Hengen, construction manager of the Crestwood firm, had completed 1,200 homes in this subdivision. As these early important neighborhoods began to grow, so did the commercial and retail parts of the area, with the very first group of 5 shops being built by the Lynch family and what is today about the middle of the row of stores facing Brandon Avenue, now called the Tower Shopping Center. Those early Springfield pioneers were very community focused and enthusiastically helped to settle the area with various clubs, PTAs, scout troops, and of course your civic association, which has served Springfield since February 1953. Many of the things you may take for granted today were championed and made possible by the early members of the Civic Association, such as house-to-house mail delivery, street and traffic lights, setting safer speed limits along the main routes, and so forth. Modern Springfield residents can be rightfully proud to live in such an important and historically significant part of Fairfax County that has long had the benefits of such a dedicated group of people who serve the interests of this community. Support of the Springfield Civic Association is helpful to all who live here, so please consider joining and being a part of their tireless efforts to promote better living for everyone it serves. I invite you all to look upon your community with pride, not just for its convenient location, but increasingly for its significance in Northern Virginia history. Perhaps some of you will even begin working to preserve some of the original buildings before redevelopment destroys what little is left of her early architecture. This is not to say that growth and progress are bad. Indeed, they are not. However, there is greater benefit when a community cherishes and preserves and restores much of its original environment to give a sense of grounding and avoid a feeling of things being too temporary and disposable. It is not yet too late, as there are still some examples of Springfield's early commercial structures which can be preserved, restored, and revitalized with new purposes. I would be one of the last persons to advocate for an older building to be allowed to languish in poor condition, but I feel strongly that they do not deserve an all or nothing outlook. When cleanup, restoration, and design cohesion can be made to bridge the past, present, and future that will benefit everyone, then that surely is the way to go. Perhaps through community efforts and working with the county and commercial property owners, the original building area at Bland and Brandon can someday be restored to its original mid-century modest appearance and thus create a historic shopping district that would give a glimpse into Springfield's early life as a new community while continuing to give affordable space for small businesses to thrive. There is a quote from the late Jacqueline Kennedy Onassis regarding the retention and preservation of locally important historic buildings that I find most inspiring. She says, "Is it not cruel to let our city die by degrees, stripped of all her proud monuments, until there will be nothing left of all her history and beauty to inspire our children? If they are not inspired by the past of our city, where will they find the strength to fight for her future?" Additionally, I ask, how can a Springfield building exist long enough to become a cherished, honored, and proud part of this community's history at 100 or 200 years old, if it is torn down and forgotten before it even reaches 75 or 80 years old? Like this modest sign, to have local historic importance to a community. Something needed to be designed by a famous architect or to be a place where some bloody battle occurred for it to be important. To those in the future to have the benefit of it still standing strong and bridging the span of beginning on into the future. Such is this sign. I will close by thanking everyone who has worked to retain, preserve, and restore this irreplaceable part of Springfield's early history as a developed community. Seeing the finished work has filled me with great hope for the future. I, Robin, wish you all well as you embrace Springfield's past while growing towards what is yet to come. I am certain that Mr. Carr would be very proud of what his dream community has become and what it means to so many of us who love it. Thank you, Robin Carter. And thank you again from the Fairfax County History Commission. It is a joy to see this kind of community activism, and I wish you well today and all your future endeavors. Please keep in touch. God bless and happy holidays.